sorry. No, you fine, man. So one of the things that as we were having this conversation, I was listening to Al and Mike,
Right.
talk about a few things, and I thought about like in the last couple of weeks about being just flat out honest with myself, like abrasively honest with myself, right? And by that self-discovery or whatever the case may be, I realized that for years, for a very long time, I've been a men pleaser. You know what I'm saying? And it's sad that you, with that honesty, who would ever admit that they're a man pleaser? You see what I'm saying? But for you to be able to admit certain deficiencies or whatever the case, because I look at that as a deficiency. You know what I mean? Because what you end up doing as a man pleaser, you're tearing off certain values that God has already placed in us to be. You see what I'm saying? And I don't believe God placed us in this life to be men pleasers. You see, so how did I get there? You know what I mean? How do we get there? And what drove me to the conclusion or the realization that I was a men pleaser? The steps to that was the honesty, man. It's the abrasive honesty with myself. So that's the self-discovery. So that's kind of what we were talking about,
Yeah.
So we started off this conversation asking, Al asked us a question. Do we care what other people think of us?
Yeah.
How high on your list of things that are important is the opinions of other people?
Yeah.
Right. And that was Ethan's response, and I think that's a good place to start, because most of us, especially those of us who have come up in households with like dominant fathers and all of that kind of stuff, we are the type that tend to say, okay, well, I want to do what I can to either keep the peace or to be accepted or to be recognized or whatever the case may be. And it's hard to break out of that. First of all, it's hard not to allow that, like you said, it's hard not to allow that mindset to force us out of accepting our own standards or holding up our own standards or our own thoughts or, being independent as the way in the way we think. Yeah. But it's even harder to break out of that. Especially if you carry that into adulthood, it's super hard to, first of all, recognize it, which is what you were just pointing out. But then it's also really difficult to break out of that.
Absolutely.
That's a real challenge, because if all of your relationships, all of your accolades, all of your life status is based upon that, you got to give a lot of that up in order to be able to say, all right, I'm done with it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You get to a point even in the workplace where, your bosses think of you as a certain way. And this goes back to what we were saying. They think they know you because you have performed or behaved a certain way.
Right.
And then after a certain point, you get to to the self-discovery that you've reached. And you're like, you know what? I don't think I'm as concerned with other people's opinion. And then all of that other stuff comes crashing down along with it. So you have to be willing to sacrifice at least some level of status, some things that you've reached in life in order to be able to be more true to your own self. And I think it's worth that loss. 100%.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
For me, I've always been that peacemaker type. Like I like to keep the peace. You don't want nobody to be angry and upset. Even between other people, like I can be that middle person, And then I do care about, for me, like in my walk, I care about the people that I care about, how they think of me. That's pretty much it. I mean, everybody else outside of that circle, I don't really care. But it's important to me that, the relationships that are important to me, that those are nurtured a certain way. You know what I'm saying? But outside of that, I can honestly say I couldn't care less about like that popular pop culture thinking or how everybody is like concerned about what people see and all these different things. I mean, I'm more concerned about like how I see myself. You know what I'm saying? If I'm not happy with what I'm seeing or what I'm producing or what I'm putting out there, then that's what I'm focused on. So I think that's my answer to that question earlier of, you know what I'm saying, like, do I care what people think? Just in general, you know what I'm saying? Because you go out in public, man, I got people, I was just at the post office today dropping something off, and I walked in, and a lady, she saw me, And she stepped away. Like, she looked at me and stepped. I'm like, I'm not a threat. I had a box and everything, but she looked at me and then, like, stepped away a little bit.
Wow.
And then as I stood there, I saw in my peripheral, she just kind of was looking me up and down, you know. And I was like, wow, I actually don't even care, you know.
Wow.
So, but I deal with that a lot, though. I get stuff like that, and it just doesn't even, like, a lot of people that would really be of some concern to them. Yeah. But for me, it's just, I can't. I don't even have the mental space to concern myself with things like that. So that's where I'm at with that.
Good.
So
that's good.
I can respect that, man. It's not easy.
Yeah, it's just I don't have the mental space, man. And plus, when you come up in a certain way, like in you know, around kids in school, things like that, you kind of get groomed.
Yeah,
you know, a certain way.
Yeah,
that is so true.
You develop a tough skin.
You either develop a really tough skin or you become as fragile as toilet paper.
You're right.
But see, that's true too.
But see, when you're a person of, I will say this: if you're a person of character and you know how to conduct yourself, and then you have people in your life that have sewn into a certain way to help you, like with that confidence.
Right.
That's it. Beautiful.
You find out that really people in general, as a whole, operate out of insecurity.
Sure.
From the toughest looking dude to the meekest young lady, all of them it's some kind of insecurity there.
Absolutely.
So when you get mistreatment or disrespect, which we definitely gonna talk about, like negativity and disrespect coming your way, you see that, oh, that's a deficit of theirs. It's not my problem.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And if I can't really help you with that, I can't be around you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's kind of where I'm at with things. I mean, it takes a while to mature to those things.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, there are some things that'll still bother you, but for the most part, you can function pretty well when you walk the line of, I can't be concerned with those things. I'm focused on these things, and there are much greater things in life to be concerned about than what somebody thinks of me. You know, somebody looking at my shirt or my shoes or something, I couldn't care less. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, G, we got to hear you, man. We can't let you sit for 2 hours.
No, everything you all said is spot on. I think it's I'd say don't be too hard on yourself for it though. Like, you know, like realizing that you like, in your words, that you felt like you were a man pleaser for a long time. We're conditioned like that. You know, and that's always been to the advantage of the powers that be, is that they want everybody to be in that mindset. Yeah. They want us all to be men pleasers. You look how many situations we come up with, how many institutions or whatever that require that. You know what I mean? From sometimes with the way our families raised us, where you have to walk a certain line in order to really get all your parents' love. You got to walk a certain line in educational institutions in order to be approved and to get degrees and to get backing from other institutions or from other professionals in your space. When you're at your job, you got to please your boss in order to get raises, to get recognized for certain things. So we're groomed in everything we come up in, everything that's of value, everything that rewards us. Your very survival has this carrot dangling in front of you that, are you going to play ball? Are you going to dance to a certain tune? So it's hard not to come up and have that mentality when every single thing that you face grooms you to, you have to please this person as a gatekeeper in order to advance in something that you want. You know what I mean? So how could we not be? The challenge is, do you get to that point of having enough confidence and having enough of your own mindset where I don't need that forever. You know what I mean? And being willing to step away from that in order to be true to yourself. When that call comes, that's when it matters.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be any one of us who, because your survival is dangling out there in front of you for this, none of us are going to really survive or thrive that well on our own if we don't play ball by those rules at first. But it's about, okay, now I'm a man. Now I'm not dependent on somebody letting me in the gate. I'm not dependent on somebody allowing me in anymore. You know what I mean? Now that I have my foot in the door, and you can be the gatekeeper for those who come after you, how are you going to conduct yourself, and how are you going to change the game? Yeah. Right, because it's like my mindset is I want to make sure that I'm not dangling a carrot out there for my kids that I will love you as long as you do this, or I will do for you or care for you as long as you do this. That was hung out in front of us. So that you can't negate the psychological impact of that. And I'm not saying any of our parents specifically. I'm saying we've seen that. Yeah. Whether it was in our household or not, we've all seen that before. Yeah. And that kind of upbringing can scar somebody, right? Because you're thinking that, well, my love, getting love from my parents or getting something I need for survival is conditional upon me doing this and that. How do you not come up being a men pleaser when that's what's your reality every single day? Right. So it's about, and do you care about what people think of you for that? No, I don't. But sometimes you got to think, like, if you if you have a goal that you want to accomplish, you have to sometimes be mindful of how you're being perceived to accomplish that goal.
I agree with that.
Because
100%.
I'm one of those people who doubt that the crucifixion was not necessary for the words of Jesus' message to be effectual.
Mm-hmm.
The crucifixion was not required for his words to be effectual.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was required by some people in order to prove he was the Messiah, which gave more weight to his words.
Yeah.
His words didn't change.
Yeah.
Right? His crucifixion didn't modify anything that he said beforehand. But that event was needed by some people to give the weight and authority they wanted to his words.
Mm-hmm.
So he could have accomplished his job and probably gone on to minister many more years after that if people were willing to listen to what he had to say and accept the words and think for themselves.
Yeah.
But they weren't. Right? So even though I think in my mind anyway, I don't see that as being required for the mission and his ministry to be as effectual as it needed to be, but there were other things at play.
Gotcha.
So in some cases, you have to be mindful of who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to influence?
Mm-hmm.
And are there expectations they're going to have? Not that you, and you draw the line when it comes to you compromise your character. I don't want to compromise my character in order to appease somebody else, or if that's what it takes for somebody to listen to me, I'm not going to compromise my character for that.
Right. Yeah.
Now, if there's something that I have to understand is something that they need or that they want to see, and I have to do that in order to help somebody, if it's not that big of a deal, maybe I will. But it's always been where the compromising of our character in my mind has been the sticking point for me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had to get to that point of being abrasively honest and being willing to walk away from things, that's what it came down to.
Yeah.
Is that I had to realize that there were things that I didn't find right and that I didn't want to support, that I was forced to because I was told this is love, this is how love looks. And because we were told this is how it is, you have to accept it as that. You can't challenge it. You can't question it. I compromised things I thought love were in order to fit in with everybody else's view of it.
Of what love.
Of what love is. What they say love is. But think about again the psychological impact of it. It's not just what they said love is. It's what they told you God's love is.
Wow. That's crazy.
It's what they told you God's love is. I based that on what people told me. Instead of me searching inwardly of did God show me something different, or has God communicated that or shown me that? You know what I mean? I took somebody else's word for it and compromised my definition of it in order to fit in with what everybody else was doing. So for me, realizing that I've based my whole concept of love around this package that's been handed to me, instead of me thinking for myself and thinking, is this really, really what I think love is? Do I think the murder of 3 million people throughout the scriptures is really the love of God being shown? To me, no. Now, I know that that's going to anger some viewers. Again, I'm not trying to anger anybody, but I'm going to be honest with myself that for me, I had to realize that the love of God to me looked different than that.
I love that. Let me ask you this real quick. Hold that thought. So, to what degree are you concerned with offending? With the context of what we're talking.
It's within as long as I'm not compromising my character.
I love that. Okay.
Because if the truth offends somebody, if the truth offends somebody, I mean, what can you do?
What can you do? I agree.
What can you do?
Because that goes along with what I was saying about do you care what people think?
Yeah.
Because somebody's always going to be offended by something, right? No matter what you say, they're going to misunderstand you.
Right.
They're going to be offended. They're going to think you lost your mind.
Right.
So it's like, how to what degree can you really care that much when you said when it compromises your character? So
because I mean you want to be gentle, and sometimes it might have to adjust your approach a little bit. Right. But again, I don't want to compromise who I am and what I believe because I have to do this. I have to dance by this tune in order for this person to receive me or to even hear me. Now again, if it's something I don't care about, if it's something that, okay, I gotta put on this stupid looking hat in order to get in this door to talk to these people, but these people are somebody I value and I want to help them. So if I gotta put on this dumb hat in order to get in the door because that's the cost of entry, it doesn't hurt me to do that. Right? But if it's smack your kid before you come in, that's not in me to do. If that's what it takes to talk to you and to reach you, I'm good. Let somebody else do it. You know what I mean? So that's what it comes down to, man. But it's just it's not comfortable. It's not convenient. You know what I mean? But that's a step I had to take, and I had to you know what I mean, accept the consequences that came with it. But I sleep better at night knowing that I've been true to who I am.
And see the people that really rock with you, and they know that about you. it's like you're not gonna lose, a certain, as long as in this walk, you have a certain group of people you rock with.
Right.
You
Exactly.
can't be too concerned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
People understand where you're coming from. You understand your journey, your path. So it's like I'm not gonna ever be like, man, Jesus lost his mind.
Right.
I mean, because you come to an understanding for yourself and in your walk, because nobody can really tell you what your experiences are.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, people can't tell you how you have felt or what you come to understand certain things to be and how that has shaped your perception of things. Everybody's perception is different. Everybody has experienced different things and it has affected them differently, particularly dealing with the church.
Right.
Yeah. So,
And that's my whole foundation for saying that.
yeah,
you know what I
definitely,
mean?
Definitely.
And
That's what has shaped us.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is. It is. And when you talk about that perspective, I let myself become one of the worst offenders of it.
Yeah.
Being honest with myself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Of holding people to a standard and letting your love and your acceptance of them be conditional on them meeting certain criteria that you line up. And I did that.
Yeah.
One of the worst,
Yeah.
admittedly.
Right.
And I was never comfortable with it, but I was brought up to believe that that was necessary.
Gotcha.
And that was a power that we're supposed to wield to keep people in line. And that's exactly what it is. So am I interested in keeping a control structure in place for somebody else? Am I interested in being an enslaver for somebody else's agenda? Am I interested in being a prison guard? No, I don't want to be those things. And if that's what honesty with myself means, you have to walk away from those things and you not be accepted. My character, the person I want to be, says that that's something that's worth leaving behind. And that's what the cost was, right?
Definitely. Have you experienced fear in that transition? Like, were you afraid to be honest with yourself in that process, or were you
At first?
Yeah, gotcha.
If I'm being honest with myself, at first, right? Because I didn't know how broad the effect, how far-reaching the effects would be.
Gotcha. Right.
So it was nervous to step into it.
Definitely.
But it took that conviction of, you know what I mean? It's like, and like I said, being one of the worst offenders, I've done it to family, to friends, just you go down the line. I've done that, not showing what I really think is a standard for love in order to meet somebody else's criteria. And having done that, committed that offense in my mind based on what I was trained to believe instead of what I actually thought, makes me sick about myself, right?
Yeah.
So for that, it's like, okay, that's what everybody else, love is this, love is that, love is that. Okay, if it means really closing the door on somebody's face, if it means putting somebody in the darkness, casting them out if you're their only light in their lives, you know what I mean? That's not worth it.
Right.
And if my mind is telling me love is something different and they're telling me it's something else, do I live by their standard to be accepted by them in this group of people? Or do I be honest with myself and try to go help somebody and be what I think is the real example of love to them?
Right.
If I were to ask those people, right, they would tell me I probably should be condemned for it. That's something I'm willing to be condemned over.
Yeah.
Because if that means undoing some of the things that I've done wrong in the past and trying to work to undo those offenses, I'm willing to take that.
Definitely. Oh,
right.
Man, that's a easy decision.
So,
yeah. That's real, bro.
So it's very interesting that you took the approach of love.
It's the most important thing, man. And it's the
It's
thing that we are so polarly set up against.
Yes.
Is to do everything in the name of love while you're showing something that's polar
The
opposite.
opposite.
It's the biggest problem we face right now. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you good. I agree with you. I was going to say my answer is my answer to the question, to the original question, comes from the perspective of love. I realize that all of us have influence with certain other people in our lives.
Right.
And when I think of being concerned with what people think of me, my mind instantly goes to that influence. And so while I don't care what people think about what they think maybe my negative traits or my deficits or whatever it may be, I do care that I am seen or I'm observed showing the real love that I have for humankind.
Absolutely.
My main drive is to because I wanted to be the person that I am. It's not just for show. Let me make sure I clarify that.
Right.
The person that I am is a person that wants to show love.
Yeah.
But I also, in doing that, whether I do it behind closed doors or out in the open, I realize that there are those who look at me and may emulate what I do, whether it's right or wrong or otherwise.
Right.
And so, from that context or in that arena or in that way of thinking, with that mindset,
For sure, I got you.
with that mindset,
Yeah.
I want to consciously show that love out in the open, so that those who may observe me can say, "This is what Mike does,"
Right.
and it's fruitful,
Right.
And so this is what I'm going to do,
Right.
Yeah.
Only in that instance do I care what people think of it.
Yeah.
Another thing you said that was really good about the people who I care about are the people whose opinions I really am concerned with. I think I have a little bit of that too. You know, my family, my close friends. I want their opinions of me to reflect how I'd like to see myself.
Definitely.
But outside of that, you know, I've been there. I've been the people pleaser. I was that for a very long time. And I don't even remember, to be honest with you. I was paused because I'm trying to remember when it clicked off for me. But whenever it did, it clicked off hard. Like if it switched off so hard that it broke the switch. Like I could not care less about being a people pleaser these days. It doesn't matter to me at all.
And it happens with maturity, man. Like you get to a certain point where it's just like you have priorities. There's just only so much you can really take in to even be concerned about. You know, like for me, I'm always careful never to offend. So that's something that I don't even make the mistake of. But if I do offend my brother or my sister, then I'm the first one. I'll be the first one to make the call. Not a text. I'll actually call them like, you know what? If I said something that was a bit curt or a bit off color and you didn't care for it, I apologize. That's easy. Because I'm not an arrogant person. It's so much it's so much arrogance out here. It's disgusting. Like people are like have this false sense of like, you know, I'm kind of up here and you know, you kind of down here, and it's just like, how?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's easy. I think I will say this. For me, I found it rather easy to maneuver through life at this point when you're honest with yourself.
Yes.
That's just all to it.
Absolutely.
If you can just maneuver through life, man, making every turn you honest with yourself, no matter how difficult it is, that's how you meet that hard stop.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, I just got to be real with myself. Like I got to wake up in the morning, look in the mirror and say, I'm happy with what I'm dealing with here within myself. Right. And if you can't do that, then that's when you do that honest, reassessment, constant recalibration. Like life is just a constant recalibration of what am I doing now with myself? Right. Like how am I living this life?
Yes.
Like,
it should be a constant.
It should be. I agree. It should be. And then with that, because I love what you said. I mean, you got to take that hard stop.
Absolutely.
Don't beat yourself up, because that doesn't really build you to where you need to be.
I'm gonna add to what you said, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go ahead.
So the assessment that you're talking about is something that I plan to start doing moving forward.
Okay.
Right. So now that I've come to this abrasive honesty, where do I go from here? Right. What's the next step? So you can't just say I'm gonna be abrasively honest with myself from now on. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to almost establish a system.
Baseline.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
And the baseline is asking the appropriate questions towards yourself.
Right.
You see, the first off, the question would be a very, very what kind of like what you were saying earlier. People may condemn me by saying this, which I really don't care no more, because it's all about putting my soul, my spirit, my all. For one thing, I'm God's child, not your child. You understand what I'm saying?
That's real, man.
Seriously.
That's real.
So if any convincing, I want God to convince me and not man. And that's why I've come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
So the assessment will start off is asking the right questions towards God. Is God righteous?
Right.
So let's find out how God is righteous.
Right.
So how is he righteous? Yeah, so the questions that I was asking is really asking the questions about righteousness, right? how is God righteousness? Why is God righteous?
Right.
You know what I mean? Or how is God righteous and all these things? Let me clear a baseline with that. So if our creator are those things, then I know he's deploying that or have an expectation for us to be the same way. You see what I'm saying? And if God is no respecter of persons, then why am I a respecter of persons? You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So that if God has deployed such a message, right, of himself toward his creation, then I feel that I've burdened myself by placing myself, and actually, it's almost a pride and egotistical type of thing to be a man pleaser. You know what I'm saying? In a weird type of way. Because you are wanting flattery.
Exactly. Exactly. Wanting status or flattery. Yep. For sure.
I didn't even think about that.
But once again, guys, that's the thing I had to do is slow down.
Yeah.
And I have to realize that I'm going to end up hitting a brick wall, which I did because I realized that I started losing something. I started losing myself in the process.
Yes.
Right.
So that's the reason why that abrasive, that honesty, clear-cut honesty helped me down this path and start asking those right questions now. Because that's the assessment and examination, you know what I mean? And like you said, the way that you can reevaluate yourself is that systematic way of thinking and approach to challenging yourself to get better, and I think that's how you get better.
Absolutely.
Definitely, I agree. I also
No, go ahead, bro.
No, I also think that it's important that we, like, however you want things to go for yourself is what you got to put out there.
Yeah.
Like, so, about, showing yourself friendly, it's imperative that, because I find, and we're going to have to talk about the negative people in a minute.
I was just about to say, that's a perfect segue.
Yeah, but it's because I've learned, like, in my experiences, the reason why I have found the few people in my life drawn to me is because of how I treat them.
Yes.
And if you don't show that person respect, I mean, what do you expect to get? So so being a man pleaser is, I think, extreme, behavior. And I think it's important to, because like I like to be cool with people. Like, I like quality relationships, quality conversations, quality interactions, quality experiences around people. That doesn't make me a man pleaser, but it does. It does say, hey, it is important to me how I maneuver in this life and what I put out there, because there's a certain thing I want to put out there that I want back, and that has happened for me. Like, I literally, like, how I conduct myself, and I learned a lot of this from my father and just watching him, how he moves. So I say about my dad all the time, like, you could put him anywhere on the planet and the guy will make a friend. And so that's the kind of behavior that I've learned. It's just important. It's imperative that, that we behave that way, and it just makes me allergic to negative people.
So I love that. That's so true. I love that, man. Like, to piggyback off what you're saying, and I think that just for clarity purposes, right? Men pleasers, I understand what you're saying. The men pleasers is because not necessarily I knew all the way that there was a return that I was getting.
I got you.
I'm not saying to not make people happy or whatever the case may be. I'm not saying you talked about respect too. Like you show respect regardless, right? You know what I'm saying? It's not the men pleaser like that. A men pleaser is, listen, do you know when you read in the scripture about men pleasers, in the Bible about men pleasers, it's in the list of murderers.
Really?
It's in a list of many things that's against how God wants us to operate.
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when you talk about men pleasers, he's talking about, it's almost like a worship of something. You see what I'm saying? And I didn't realize that I was doing that all this time. And that's what hurts, is because you're doing, and like you said earlier, is that we were conditioned in a certain way of living, an environment, culture, or whatever the case may be, that not only births it, right? But what's the word I want to look, that what's the word I'm looking for? But kind of nudges it. Exactly. Kind of nudges us in that direction. You see what I'm saying? Not even knowing that. You see what I'm saying? But like you said, like Uncle Al, like your dad, man, this man, you can pop that man anywhere, man, is regardless. He know who he is in that moment. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the whole point, is like, remove all of and the thing is going to the negative people, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you find yourself stroking the egos of negative people, not even knowing that you're doing it. Mm-hmm. Let me be clear of that. Let me be very clear of this. Sometimes, like, in order for people sometimes to stay on a certain side of negative people, you stroke that ego so they won't put that negativity on you. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Does that make sense?
It does.
You know?
It does.
Yeah.
So you almost fall victim in their own shenanigans. You know what I'm saying? And that's the reason, and I'm not saying that I face that, but I know from time to time I probably was put in that position to think like that. Yeah. And that's the reason why abrasively honest and asking the right questions towards yourself will resolve all of these deficiencies.
Definitely.
As long as you mix it with the confidence to say that no matter what, I'm going to resolve within myself to better myself after I ask the question.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. Beautiful. For sure. Beautiful.
Yep. So to clarify though, with negativity and negative people though, it's a gambit. You know what I'm saying? It's not just somebody that's just always like, you know, it's people that are like constantly speaking negative and putting negative out there, whether it's to themselves or to you. So like if you have an accomplishment, if you've done, you're trying to do something better with yourself, it's like, man, you ain't gonna succeed. You ain't gonna succeed. Right. Then who do you think you are? You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, don't talk to me. Because my thing is, with that, what I understand about that type of behavior is if you're talking to me like that and you're conducting yourself towards me like that, that means that's how you feel about yourself.
That's right.
You're not gonna pass that to me.
That's right.
So
that's right.
That's the input I want from y'all.
Beautiful.
Man. I know it's loaded, man. It's heavy, man. I know it's a lot. You gotta take a deep breath and just kind of let it go.
Yeah, I find myself a lot of times. I have a lot of people that I connect with on a regular basis, and I find myself not directly addressing people's negativity.
Yeah,
but more so finding a way in a conversation to shift back to positivity. Yeah. So for instance, if I have somebody that's talking to me that is, I don't know, dealing with some sort of hardship at work, while they're explaining, I will, of course, validate what they're saying because, people that are dealing with things, that's valid, right?
Right.
So I validate, and then to the best of my ability, I try to steer, the conversation. Yeah. Well, yeah, that sucks a lot, but I mean, you're getting your bills paid, or but you up for a promotion in a month as long as you can stick with it, or you got that book you're working on, and as soon as that takes off, you'll be able to quit this job, that type of stuff.
Right.
Now the thing that I also find is that there are some people that will turn that away. They will block you from being negative, a negative impact on their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I find that those are the people that I tend to kind of keep a little more at arm's length, as opposed to bringing them in really close. Because again, like you said, I'm allergic to it. There's only so much negativity that I can take. If we can't figure out a way to take whatever is negative, I'm not implying that negativity doesn't exist. I'm not implying that things that are hardships or things that can be depressing or things that make us sad or angry don't exist.
Right.
I'm saying that a positive mindset is able to take those things, see them, and see the value that can be gleaned from that. Yeah. Every negative situation can still have some sort of value.
You can at least learn from it.
Every cloud has a silver lining. And there was a long time I didn't believe that.
Yeah. Right.
Every single cloud has a silver lining. Yeah. Even tragedy, all of these things, there are, you lose a loved one. Okay, the silver lining is you have memories that you can hold on to forever with that person.
Right, exactly.
The silver lining is, you're able to take on the mantle that they passed to you. You're able to take that legacy and do greater things. There's always something good to look at.
Yeah.
So my mindset is that if I come across somebody that I'm able to find that silver lining with, those are the people that I hold on to closely.
Yeah.
Everybody else, I'm like, oh well, I tried, and if you want to stay there, and it's hard for me to say that you want to stay there, but that's really what it is.
Yeah, it is, because the negativity I'm speaking of is that person that if they can't see it for themselves, they can't see it for you.
Yes. Yeah.
So if I don't think I can get to the understanding that you have on some things, I think you crazy.
Right.
That type
Right.
of. So that's what I'm talking about. Like
Right.
whatever it is, like
I got you.
like you an entrepreneur, you ain't no entrepreneur. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like, what are you talking about? I am an entrepreneur. You know. It's like,
Don't project your
man,
fears onto
black
me.
people don't. We don't be running businesses.
Right.
It's like, what are you talking about?
Right.
But you rapper or something?
Yeah, because there's literally people out there like that, and it's like, how are you like this? I'm just like, I don't understand. Like, how does your mind work that way?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
I want to.
I like to turn that stuff back on people.
Yeah.
You know what it is? And it's maybe I like playing, not playing mind games really, but
Yeah,
to show people what that looks like.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
it's ridiculous.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So give me an example of that.
All right, so and I think honestly this kind of connects both our topics, right? So there's a researcher I listen to a lot, and he came from academia. He was working on a PhD before he stopped because basically the system started bucking against the direction he was going.
Mm-hmm.
So his example is, and this is the kind of like what I was talking about earlier, like with the peer review process. You're coming up in academia, you want to write a thesis for a master's or a doctoral dissertation or something like that. The condition of you getting that paper approved and you getting that degree is you submit that paper for your peers to look at, to vet it, to make sure it makes sense, to make sure it has validity to it. Okay? Now, in a situation where everybody's open-minded and honest, that peer review process can work great. When that peer review process is there to stop free thought and everybody understands that, you submit a peer review paper and that the paper that you're writing goes against the grain. Everybody that's already established, that has something to lose,
Gotcha.
that's a gatekeeper,
Gotcha.
right? And that their well-being, their wealth, their success, whatever, is tied to the success of the system.
Yeah.
They're there to protect that system, not you, not your freedom of thought, not your ideas, right? So you submit this paper to be peer reviewed by all these people who have an opinion that they've accepted whatever the Kool-Aid is from that group, right? And none of them have a mindset to buck against the system or to go challenge that mindset, right? You could be right, wrong, and it doesn't matter. But if your content is going in a direction that they don't want you to go, they're going to find reasons to pick apart what your idea is or your proposal. So that peer review process can end up working to maintain the status quo more than anything else. And they do it by negativity. They do it by, this is not going to work. This is outside the grain. This is going against we believe. This is going to cause damage. This is going to do this. This is going to do that. So the thing you bring back to them is, so somebody says, okay, I'm an entrepreneur. And somebody says, no, you're not. Oh, you know some entrepreneurs? How many of them do you know?
Exactly.
That's right.
Oh, so you're telling me this from experience? Oh, you don't know any. Oh, okay.
Like,
Okay.
wait a minute, let me explain.
Right. Okay, so how many people have you met that have been trying to go down that path?
Right.
Oh, none for that too, huh?
Good.
Okay, are you an entrepreneur? Right.
You got me.
So it's like, so how is that mindset working out for you?
Right.
How is that
I
mindset
love
working
that.
for
I
you?
love
Right.
that.
I don't have
I
to
love
challenge you. I ain't gotta. I can let you stay in your lane where you are. I know I'm not going to be affected by it.
Right.
But before you go and poison somebody else, how is that working out for you?
Yeah.
And if that's bringing you something beneficial and positive in your life, you by all means you're going to do what you're going to do.
And see, I love that because it
love
makes the
that,
person
too.
think.
That's all. That's
see,
all.
the thing about being negative is you're not really thinking about
Beautiful.
like everything.
Reactionary.
You know what I'm saying?
It's
So
reactionary,
It's
man.
reactionary.
Yeah, that's all it
It's
is.
small picture stuff.
Yeah.
It's reactionary. So
Yeah.
if I, like you said, if I can't do this or if I can't see myself doing it,
Yeah.
then I'm not going to let you, see yourself doing it. I don't need your approval for that.
Trust me, guys. You're right. It's a very common mental disease. It really is. To just if I can't see it, and some of it is I dare say this, but how our upbringing. So
Absolutely.
So for example, like coming up in the church, you know what I'm saying? If you kind of understand, if you've seen a few different things, that scares people.
Yes.
And they don't want to. You don't want to shake the boat on that stuff.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And so they become negative. Like it's just a negative reaction. Like, what are you talking about? Because everyone, and we even do this too, everyone ties their identity to something that's important to them.
Yes.
Like you were just saying, like people's identity are wrapped up in that stuff.
Right.
And when you insult their identity,
Right.
and a lot of people's identity is the church.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you insult the identity by challenging them to think, all it is it becomes negative.
Yes.
So if you're doing something positive with your life and then they're not, it's almost like it's an insult to them.
Right.
That
Right.
you're succeeding and then they're not.
That's-
So the thing is
that's the key.
it becomes twisted because it's just like, I don't want to see you win because I'm not winning. And I don't want you to get to the finish line first. And it's a weird, sick twisted behavior, but then what it breeds is failure.
Yes.
Just flat out failure, and then you got to leave them behind. And this happens. This can happen with some of your closest, best people that you rock with.
That's right.
And that's where it hurts the most because just a disclaimer, people. I'm not talking about anybody that I know. I'm just putting this out there.
It's all right.
This is just a good discussion because it's something that I've observed over time. Brother, you will be in competition with people and you won't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? You're like, I didn't know I was in that competition with you. I didn't know I was in that race with you.
Right.
I didn't know that you were building a brand over here and it was competing with mine. I didn't know that.
Right.
You know? And so the immediate reaction, it becomes negative, and this is like, you'd be surprised what negativity stems from.
Right.
You know, people are attacking you and coming to you with different things, and you're like, I don't understand.
Right.
I'm just living my life like you.
That's right.
I'm in no competition. If I succeed, it's because I have to. It's because I need to, because I'm proving something to myself.
Yes.
So don't attack me in a negative way.
Right.
If you come to an understanding for yourself on something, if you're doing something with your life that other people can't see, it's like, why are you gonna go ahead and quit that job with the benefits? You quit that job with the benefits, you gonna start a business?
Right.
What's wrong with you? You know,
Man,
and it's just like,
that is so true.
Yeah,
but it's
I've literally heard it.
But when you hear that, you hear fear.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
you
exactly
know that's
what it is.
the first place I hear. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind.
They scared for you, and then they're scared for themselves because they're like, if I was in that position, I couldn't do that. That's automatically what it is. It's like, that's negative though.
Yeah.
Like, why would it be that? Because I remember you saying in an early show, and it was great. It's just like you choose not to think about, like you're not afraid of heights, probably.
Right.
So you don't think about falling and dying.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You just like, I just want to have a good time. And, you know, so with becoming an entrepreneur, you can't really think about failing. Even if it happens, you're not going to stay there because you weren't thinking about failing. You don't have that negative mentality to keep you there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of people's biggest fear in life is failing. And then if they see you succeeding, then they're like, you probably going to fail too. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what are you talking about?
And I think it's another aspect to that too, because the reason I think that the challenge sometimes can be effectual is because a lot of times that negativity, like you said, it's coming from a place of fear, but the biggest problem is that it doesn't come from a place of experience.
There you go.
That's the biggest problem, right? And again, I know we're always calling back to the way we were raised, right? But it was a big thing in our generation when we were younger and the generation before us that when you're in the church, you don't go to the movies.
Right. Yeah. That's a big one.
So
Big one.
I wanted so many times to say, how many people do you know that went to a movie and just didn't come back to church?
Thank you.
What movie was it that one person went out and saw one movie and decided they were going to never come back? It's so dangerous for them. You know what I mean?
Right.
So a lot of times it's that somebody is fearful or doesn't know what to expect, but a lot of times it's because they've been conditioned to be fearful by the person that came before them and the person that came before them, and it all comes back to a control mechanism.
Yeah.
And the reason why I think we talk about our childhoods with that so much is because I think that is a perfect, a little micro ecosystem, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a resounding theme in our
lives. It
lives,
is, man. And it's in so many different things. And I think that for us, that happened to be the bubble that we were brought up in where it was really, really exaggerated. But I think it's the same kind of mechanisms that are being used all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere. It's just, it's a very focused, and we all happen to have that in common. So it's easy to kind of talk about that as a common reference point for us. But again, that mentality, man, it's just, it's I don't have any experience there whatsoever. Right. But I was taught to be fearful, and if I'm terrified of it, you probably should be too. Right. Don't put that off on me.
That's the identity that I was just talking about.
Yes, it is.
And I think the reason why all of the four of us have been so passionate about these type of conversations that circle back towards that is because at one point or another, all four of us had to challenge our own identity.
Absolutely.
The thing that we had had known and understood all growing up.
Right.
You know, we had to, at some point, all of us have come to a point where, and this is not saying abandoning our faith or anything like that.
No, right.
It's understanding the structure, or not the structure, the system that we've been kind of conditioned. Like you said, the ecosystem that we were in had become genuinely our identity. And then as soon as you get a little break in that thing, you can see that the world is much, much bigger.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's so much more to learn outside of what's in this little ecosystem. And that, in fact, a lot of the things that are in the ecosystem are completely incorrect or inadequate to sustain a human in the will of our God, our creator, whatever, however you want to describe him.
Right.
That's where, for me personally, and I would assume that it's, for all of us, that's where for me it hits hardest because that's to me and you have had a few conversations about this. Mm-hmm. Accepting certain truths and certain realities are powerful enough to wrench the very fabric of who I am. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Everything that I was ingrained, everything that I was indoctrinated with, a lot of that stuff had to be done away with, had to be trashed, had to scrap it. You know what I mean? And that because it was my identity, it made me afraid for a while. You know what I mean? Even years ago when I first started realizing something is wrong. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was afraid of it, afraid of those thoughts, afraid of what might be real and I might, what might be fake or whatever.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Simply because of what you said. Mm-hmm. When you attack somebody's identity, that's where all of those negative emotions come up.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because that related exactly to what you said, and that's what was most painful for me during my
for sure
journey. You know what I mean?
And that's where for people going back to the insecurity again, right? Mm-hmm. That people, because I'm the biggest defender. People can get easily offended if, for example, you find contentment or what you consider salvation in a belief system other than their own. Right? Yeah. If you don't find the belief system that I hold to and that I'm trying to draw you into of value the way I do, if you don't find the contentment there that I do, if you don't find the salvation there that I do, people get personally offended because, like you said, they built their identity up around this thing. And if this is everything to me, if you reject it, that means you're rejecting me or you're rejecting my values and my worth and my this and my that, and they personalize it so much.
Yeah.
And again, that's of benefit to those who are at the top of that food chain. You know what I mean? And it's just like that's where we got to start to be thinking for ourselves and break away from that, because don't get personally offended at things like that.
Yeah.
And I want to say too, right? My little PSA from earlier, the conversation, the comments that I was making earlier about that perception of the love of God are my own. I'm not putting that on anybody else here, and I know that is not a popular opinion or perspective amongst those we were raised among. So that's my opinion. That's my mindset. I'm not putting that on any of them. And I know we have a broad audience and a lot of them are people we all know. We've all come up around, and that's not everybody's mindset. That's me. I'm not putting on anybody else, but I do feel very strongly that we have not been taught correctly about the love of God, and that's caused us to not be the representatives we're supposed to when it comes to showing God's love. And I feel that is, to me, the core, number one, top priority issue with humanity as a whole. And that's why I'm passionate about it, and that's my mindset. Again, that's not theirs. I don't want that to be reflected on any of you all. It's not a popular mindset. I have a challenge, an issue against a lot of stuff that we're told to accept as God in the Old Testament, and that's not on any of them. So I just want to make that part clear before we go on with that, because like I said, I do get quiet sometimes, not wanting to just considering who you all have listening to it, but to me, that's a very important one. You know what I mean?
It's all good. I think once again, it's kind of what I was saying is about being abrasively honest.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think the whole idea is to ask the right questions too within yourself or whatever the case may be. You know, I think like more and more, when you talk about liberty, once I have finally come to a point in my life where negativity, I use negativity as a tool.
Right.
I use it as an actual tool, because negativity is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Let me take it back. It is a bad thing.
It depends.
It's a bad thing, but you can use it as a tool.
Right.
It is a bad thing, but you can use it as a tool for us to recognize and be way above that, right? You know what I'm saying? You can use it as a mechanism, because without negativity, how do you know to get better? You know what I'm saying? In some type of way, how do you know to get better?
That's right.
You know, I think that's kind of my mindset.
Sure. I agree, but I think what you're talking about is like more so maybe like adversity. So like negative aspects of adversity, like losing a loved one, things like that, that'll make you feel negative. You know, but I think the negativity that I'm speaking of is like just that fear.
Okay. So let me kind of add on to that, because I had a thought in my head, because I was going to segue to that fear too, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the people, like you said, the insecurities of others that don't want you to be successful, you can use that as a catapult.
I agree.
And if you don't,
that's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? That's
Should
kind of
be
what I'm
positive.
saying. That is the
That's kind of what Mike was saying. Like that's the positive aspect of it.
Bang.
Because it's just. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You know,
it's just interesting to me because, and this kind of goes along with what G was talking about. Like my observation coming up, and this is why I wanted to bring up this discussion about negativity, because in the church we were trained to believe like God is love. You know, and the scripture speaks about, God is love, right? Mm-hmm. But then what you observe is fear and negativity. True. So like, it's like I grew up feeling a bit conflicted about that, because it's like God is love. God wants this for you. He wants peace in your life. He wants love. He's compassionate. You're a lamb, and all this stuff. But then when you actually are sitting in a lot of messages and sermons, you hear things about fear and adversity and negativity and how you need to overcome that stuff. And this is like, okay, but where's the good stuff? I'm waiting for the good stuff now. Mm-hmm. Like, and you spend your lifetime, in church, looking for the good stuff, and you have to read, some things to find it. But then you look back on it and you're like, that didn't really measure up properly. Mm-hmm. And you feel like in some ways, it stunts your growth as an individual. Mm-hmm. Just trying to understand, that positioning with that, because you hear, God is love, God is love, God wants this for you, God wants that for you. And you believe that, but then what you see and what you're shown is just fear, negativity, and then you're like, "Wait a minute, are you trying to control me here?" Or
that's the point. That's another one of those reflective questions. They don't. Yeah. But that's another one of those reflective questions that you have to ask. If God is not giving us a spirit of fear, why do you rely on fear so much to get your goal accomplished?
Build churches on fear, man.
Like you have to reconcile with that.
Yeah.
And we've let them get away with pushing fear as their main tool.
Yeah.
And if that's not what God operates off of, why do you use it so much? Why do you rely on it so much if that's not how God wants it? If God is not giving us a spirit of fear, why do you want to make everybody in there fearful?
Yeah.
Something doesn't match up.
Right. There's an agenda there that I don't know
Absolutely.
about.
It's a missing element there, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, man, this is powerful, man. They use this tool, this mechanism, this fear to control. Mm-hmm. They use this fear. Most of the time, it's because it's been a tactic that's been passed down for so many generations. Mm-hmm. And most of the people that we have sat under at church wasn't even educated enough to even really understand a lot of these things. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Like, really, I'm just being honest, So you're almost at the own mercy of a man that can't really get out the box his own self. Right. Or he wasn't even challenged. He didn't challenge himself enough because of the fears to even break the roof or
not
break
being
the
accepted.
Man.
You want to fall outside those boundaries. And that's why I don't blame those who came before us. And again, as much as we talk about things we kind of reflect on in our upbringing, and I think we've been clear about it a number of times. We're not saying that to blame anybody in the generation that came before us. Because I've had a conversation with my mom a couple of times. And she was like, "Did I do that?" And I'm like, "Mom, you had that done to you. Yeah. Right. You know what I mean? So it's natural that you passed it on as the right way to go. Yeah. And I don't blame you. I don't fault you for that. You know what I mean? And again, it's like it wasn't. I'm not. When I'm saying those things, it's not to put the blame on somebody. It's putting the blame on the system.
Exactly.
That perpetuates and makes us have that kind of mentality. That's what needs to be addressed.
Exactly.
We all know what those pressures are like to conform and to fit in and to be accepted. Yeah. I don't blame anybody for that. That's a hard thing. That's a heavy weight for somebody to have to carry. Yeah. So I don't fault anybody that came before us, any of the generation that raised us, my parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, pastors, none of them. I don't blame any of them, but it's just a matter of, can we collectively decide, I want to do away with, I don't want you to have to tell somebody that they're going to do right or encourage somebody to do right because of the fear of what punishment they're going to face. And I want you to strip out, if you do this, you're going to get this reward. Yeah. Take those things away for a second so you can lay out, if you do this thing right, if you don't steal, then the money that this man has made from his job and the things he was able to get from his job, you let him keep that and you let him feel safety. And maybe when you need a job and if you're stealing because you need money, maybe he can help you and he's more willing to give you something than you go stealing from him. Lay out all the reasons why this is the right thing to do. Strip out the rewards, strip out the punishments, and encourage people to do right for the benefits that are there to do right. How does it benefit you? How does it benefit your family, your community? And let it be based off of that alone.
I agree.
You made excellent points, and the thing is this is what you're saying is actually what Jesus did. You see what I'm saying? I think people have a different view or perception of how Jesus operated. Like seriously, I'm not talking about a man that has a long beard and all this and this pretty thing that you know pictures and him on a cross. Let's look at his words. Let's look at his words and let's say this man spoke as if he was led by God, by the Spirit of God.
That's right.
In the story,
Yeah.
we look at these pictures and we get bamboozled by all this imagery instead of looking at the actual words itself. The man sat on a hill and taught thousands of people against a culture.
Yes.
He was a trendsetter of a way of thinking and establishing thought for people, giving liberty for people to think for themselves. How in the world has the tide turned where we placed ourselves back into a cage when Jesus came here to free us from? And so now we're on pulpits, recruiting, you know what I'm saying? Proselyting more people back into a cage when Jesus delivered us from that.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? And so, and the thing is like, if you look at anybody and just really look at his words, slow down, once again, ask the right questions, slow down, and say, what is this man talking about? I guarantee you, man, you're going to have some liberty in the thought itself. You see what I'm saying? And people just don't take time. Just take time. Because I think the fear, once again, that fear is such a powerful mechanism, man.
Yes,
it doesn't allow us to actually see the words of the Lord Jesus and his apostles. Or what. It doesn't allow you to.
You can't have a good relationship with God. You can't have a good relationship with your people.
Man.
You know what I'm saying? It's just, fear it cripples everything.
It does,
you
man.
know? So, and negativity, definitely, it just cripples everything. It just destroys everything, you know. And, so, yeah.
Man.
Yeah, fear is the ultimate negative tool. I mean, because it's the opposite of the ultimate positive tool, which is love.
Absolutely.
My observations of fear were, I think I experienced. I think my response to observing fear was different than most people. I grew up in an environment where fear was kind of the order of the day. And it never sat right with me. Never. From a child until now, it never sat right with me. Why are we afraid of this? Why are we afraid of that? Now, there was times where fear didn't necessarily register as fear. Because it's easily hidden. It's easily camouflaged as, self-righteousness or, authority. It's easily camouflaged. And so there were a lot of things that I saw and even participated in that were just pure exercises in fear.
Right.
There were things that I believed that were just purely me exercising the fear that had been passed to me.
Right.
Once I got to the realization, and it's such a simple thing, but since we're going to the talking about the church stuff. The scripture that we've read and heard hundreds of thousands of times, the perfect love casts out fear.
Right.
I glossed over that, probably 10,000 times in my life, just thinking, oh, wow, yeah, perfect love casts out fear.
Right.
But when you really think about what the implications of those words are, it's one of those light switch things for me anyway. Right. It's one of those things that if I am equipped with the greatest love in all of creation, what in the world do I have to be afraid of? What negativity could there possibly be that can get me down?
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And so since I live at this point now, I haven't always had this particular way of thinking, but from where I am now, equipped with that understanding, I'm able to approach the entire world, no matter from the hardest trials to the greatest triumphs. I'm able to approach everything in a way that, number one, keeps me humble, keeps me exercising and exhibiting that love and pushing fear as far away from me as I can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's literally the way that I see everything. And if I don't see it, eventually I'm getting there because I'm constantly, like we were talking about earlier, I'm constantly reevaluating.
Right.
I want to always be aware of where I stand in this particular moment.
Absolutely.
And if I'm wrong right now, in an hour, I'll be at home going over this conversation again.
Oh, yeah, I do.
You know what I'm saying? In order to correct my mindset. Even if I don't come back and say, hey, y'all, listen, I was messed up in that conversation. In my mind, the next time we come to it, I'll have a different way of looking at it if I feel like I was saying something incorrect or wrong, whatever, because I'm constantly reevaluating.
We have to be.
And that, to me, I think that's the key part of human evolution.
Right.
I mean, if I want to evolve as a person, I ain't talking about generational evolution.
Right.
I'm talking about me as however many years I have on this earth. I want to evolve from the person who lived their life in fear and then greed and then lust and then vanity and then all of these people who I've been over the years. I want to continually evolve into a being. There's a scripture that says, "Be ye perfect, for I am perfect." Now we always hear this. Oh man, nobody's perfect. Nobody. Well, why? Why are we not? Why are we not?
Why are you striving?
Exactly. Why are we not pushing towards? Exactly. I think that if I'm able to live long enough, perfection is achievable as long as I'm constantly evolving.
Right.
There's a point, and I'm gonna do like my cousin. This is my personal belief that if I'm able to live long enough, and as long as I stay on the path that is laid out for me, and that's the correct path, I believe genuinely that as long as I'm pushing towards it, I can achieve a certain level of perfection as far as my emotional, my mental, and my spiritual well-being. I believe that I can achieve that perfection, and nothing's going to deter me from that thought because that thought is what drives me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I'm always reaching towards that perfection. I want to get there. You know what I mean? There's this concept of ego death. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it. I know we've talked about it a couple times. You said you have?
I have.
I haven't heard it.
So there's this concept that's called ego death. It's a lot of times it's kind of the subject is breached among people who are like, who experiment with certain like psychotic substances and all that kind of stuff. I had to put that delicately.
Psychedelics.
Yeah, psychedelics. There you go.
Understood.
But the concept in and of itself refers to coming face to face with the worst parts of me and being able to come away from that experience knowing that I have that negative part of me underfoot. If I'm able to eliminate or at least subdue the most vile, base, primal parts of myself, then I'm able to achieve a certain level of I hate to use the phrase enlightenment. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what naturally comes to my mind, but it sounds kind of...
It's progress.
There you go. Because enlightenment, that phrase, that word turns people off, and like I said, it's overused. But yeah, progress is perfect. It allows me to achieve certain progress.
Or growth even.
Yeah, simply because I'm able to now differentiate.
Right.
There's this episode of Rick and Morty, which I freaking love. Rick and Morty. It has a lot of interesting concepts that they address, but one of them is it's a sci-fi show. It's a cartoon, but they went to this planet, and at this spa in this planet, they have this machine that you go in and sit down, and the guy outside pushes a button, and it separates your negative from your positive. It separates all of your lying, your irrational behavior, all of your fears, your anger, everything that's negative. It literally sucks it out of you and it traps it in this little garbage bin, basically. And you come out, you feel it refreshed. You can't tell a lie. You always laughing. You always smiling. And you always showing love, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I looked at that episode like, wow, I can't believe that they breached that. It made it funny, but the way that they breached it is funny because they were saying like a person is not whole that was the overarching concept, was a person is not whole without both of those parts.
No, I got you.
But for me, my thought is I realize that to be a whole human being, I have to have, the yin and yang, so to speak. But I don't have to allow that base part of me to have equal hold on who I am as a person.
Yes.
Right? I'm able to keep that person underfoot, and I'm able to triumphantly be my more perfect, my more progressive, my more whatever self, my more loving self. And so anyway, I'm not going to keep rambling. But anyway, that's
really
important.
That's good.
I think, and we can. I think we got enough.
Yeah,
we can probably end on that. We got enough. Yeah. But to add to your thought right there is that's
You got more thoughts? Are you going to just keep going for a little bit till you finish?
That's good.
He said,
We're trying to eat, right?
Yeah, right. He's been hungry. When I first walked in the door, he was like, think about food.
Dude, I didn't have nothing today. Hardly. Yeah, some Cheez-Its.
Oh, man.
So I was thinking about, like, while you were talking, one of the things that I've been studying more and more, like in the scripture, is about righteousness, right? And I was really taken by Paul when in Philippians, when he says that I'm writing these things to you. He said, for me it's not grievous to write to you, but for you it's safe. And I always wonder, like, okay, what Paul talking about? He goes on to the next verse and he says, beware of dogs. He says, beware of evildoers and beware of the concision. I was like, what's he talking about, right? He goes on, he says, for we are the circumcision that are led of the Spirit of God and have no confidence in the flesh. And I'm like, okay, what is he talking about? I always wondered and considered what he was for years. And he says, if I have confidence in the flesh, I should have more, because he went down a list of all his accomplishments, right? But he said, but I count it all loss for the excellency of the Lord Jesus, of the knowledge of God and the Lord Jesus, in Christ Jesus, right? So all the things that he has gained in life, all his studies, his intellect, his following the law, the pursuit of being a Pharisee, and all these things, he called it but dung for the excellency of the knowledge of God in Christ, right? And I thought that was very important. And he says this, he says, I go after it not after my own righteousness, which is of the law, meaning that everything that I studied, everything that I've done according to the law, he says, that was my own righteousness. Everything that I've developed in this life is for my own righteousness. It's for me to stake my claim, hang my hat up on that hook, because I've done it. And he says, but it was not to the glory of God. You see what I'm saying? It was all for my flesh. It was everything for my flesh. But he said, I count it all as dung. He says, but my righteousness that I found to be of the knowledge of God in Christ Jesus. And I was like, I actually had tears coming out my eyes, because once again, men pleaser, flattery, ego, pride, all these things was a development of myself, right? And not really recognizing that I was pursuing all these things after my own righteousness. You see what I'm saying? Like, I think, and I'm critical about this, because I'm very, very critical about this. And that's the reason why I have to be very, very careful what I say and the things that I talk about, because I don't want my burdens to be someone else's burden. You understand? But at the same time, what can we all learn from this? And that's where I'm at. It's not being negative towards myself or being negative or whatever, but it's about reality, being real, being authentic with myself, and how do I mature in God without having my own righteousness. Because if you think about it, man, if you look at from the Old Testament even till now, everything is based. The reason why people are in sin is because of their own righteousness. If you think about it, it's very simple. It's not even as hard as we make it out to be. You see what I'm saying? They sin because he got sin because he got this and that. No, it's because of they made a choice above God's, you know what I'm saying? Above God's righteousness. to say I'm going to make this choice based off of what I feel, my intellect. It's me, my frame, my body, this and that. And God has nothing to do with it. You have lifted your own righteousness above God. And I found that in myself as well, Paul. You see what I'm saying? Paul is a heavyweight. And this brother is saying that, listen, I want to be found in this man too. I want to, you know, and I'm thinking to myself like, how in the world is Paul saying that? And to me, Paul is a heavyweight. You see what I'm saying? This brother was like, this brother said, that I may apprehend what I'm already apprehended of. And to me, when I look at Paul's words, I'm thinking to myself that this man has really apprehended. But he's saying I didn't have, I'm apprehending. Yeah. And so that's the thoughts that's really been on my mind. That's when, as you guys were talking, I was just in my mind, I was thinking about, you know, with this, the negative, people. I was thinking about our approach to understanding who we are, the identity. Like you said, what was the last thing you talked about? The ego death. That's when I really started thinking about that righteousness type of thing. You see what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm a weirdo, y'all. Like I think very, very differently. So I know I don't even know if it even makes sense sometimes, man.
Absolutely it does. I have a question coming from that. So we've been talking about doing our best to dismiss negativity, right? But you said something about my burdens being someone else's burdens. If our responsibility, and this is just me asking a question, it just made me think. If our responsibility is to bear one another's burdens, or, you know, in brotherhood and friendship, whatever, how do you reconcile dismissing all negativity if your brother has a burden that you're supposed to help bear?
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful.
I'm trying to think, man. I saw this quote. Man, what was I watching? Because I don't want to say it before I remember where it came from. But basically, like the lesson was, when a burden shared is either halved or doubled, depending on who you share it with.
Bro, get the freak out of here.
I'm forgetting where I saw it.
You need to cite really that so that people don't think you're that smart.
No, that's great. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's like it depends. It depends on who you give it to, and it's like you have to. And I think that we as men, especially, I know as a father and a husband and everything else, you're careful. Who if you're going to lay a burden on somebody or share a burden, you're careful who you do it with.
Yeah.
Because the burden might break somebody.
Yeah.
Or it might be you lay it on somebody that's strong enough. Or maybe it's a person that at one point in time they're weak and another point in time they're strong. And at this moment they can find themselves able to help. But you never know. But you have to try to be cautious as a man. To be careful. If you're going to share and unload on somebody that you're not going to be burdening them or hindering them. That's somebody that can help or help you kind of resist. That's a good question.
Yes, sir.